Welcome to my vertical obsession, and today we are going to be talking about The Unwanted Bride of Atticus Fawn, which is currently on DreameShort and Short Max. You can watch them on one of those two. It is also a story that came from Wattpad. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that it was from that site and app, and then they turned it into the short that it is now. And this is also one of the first ones that I ever watched. It was this one and then True Luna, which I do want to kind of go back and watch True Luna. I just have to find which app it is on currently, because I wanted to take it back to the first ones I ever watched. And this one and True Luna were the ones that you saw quite constantly, I'd say, as ads on TikTok, especially when it came to this one, The Unwanted Bride of Atticus Fawn. And you always saw that bedroom scene where Autumn is telling Atticus she loves him and that Atticus marked her even though she wasn't his mate. And I always remembered those scenes so vividly because they stood out so much from the series, and also to the point that you kind of saw them on repeat on TikTok. But it was still those scenes that what drew me in to be like, okay, now I need to watch the series and see what this whole thing is about. And it sucked me in, and I have been watching these series ever since. And now here we are. But yeah, so I figured it would be only fitting to bring it back to one of the first series I ever watched. We talk about it and kind of discuss it a little bit, because this is also one of the ones that ended on a cliffhanger that never got resolved, or at least I don't think it ever got resolved, because when I pull it up now, there is no new episodes on it, which when I first started watching, I thought that was how these went, is that they would update the episodes when they made more versus creating a whole new sequel like some of them do. Because again, this was like a new format when they first came out, so I didn't understand how they all worked. Now I do. But that was always the one thing that I thought, and I was like, I kept waiting for new episodes to drop, because I was like, okay, well, how is this gonna continue? Because found out at the end, her eyes glowed red, that she may have magic, and we got no resolution. And yes, I know you can read the story and find out how it all ends, or what the whole thing was, which I will have to do, because I do kind of want to see how that story plays out in its written and original format. And that is also one of the things that I've come to love about Candy Jar, is that their stories and their series are based off the written stories from their novel app, which is called Galantina. I'm butchering that name. I am. I'm going to have to work on pronunciations of things, so I apologize. But I know that that's also what this Candy Jar used to be called until they switched it to Candy Jar. But they take their stories from their written stories, so you can always read what their stories are taken from and see how it plays out and what actually happens. A lot of the time, those ones are different, that they kind of change things, which is a normal thing that happens when you turn a book or a novel or a piece of literature into a visual series. Things get left out, things get changed, because it's the way they adapt from written to visual. That always happens, but I have found that sometimes with the Candy Jar app, they kind of stay somewhat true to their written pieces, because they are a bit easier to adapt, I feel like, because they don't have as many characters, or they're not as long as the novels that get adapted to movies or TV shows type of thing. So I think that kind of helps it. But going back to this one, like I said, I would love to see how it ends, because that was one of the first cliffhangers that never got resolved, for me at least, and it always annoyed me. The same with True Luna. That one had a cliffhanger that I never saw the resolution, or it never had a resolution. And if any of them did, and you do know about them, please let me know, so that way I can go back and watch, because I searched and I just never saw it, but I wish it did. Whereas True Luna, I don't think that has a written version. But again, I could be wrong about that one. But going back into this one, like I said, I always wanted to know like where those red eyes came from. So I'll have to kind of come back to this once I kind of go through it. And I thought about that. I thought about kind of like reading the story before doing this episode so that way I could kind of interject that. But then I was like, no, we're going to just talk about this. We're going to talk about the series, the one that helped start it all for me. And it also is the one that got me to love Nicole, who has continued to do these series. She does quite a bit on DreameShort, and I always enjoy those series so much, especially the ones she does with Seth. Love those. She has a new one that just came out not too long ago, which I will do. I will watch and then do a little recap. I haven't gotten to it yet. Like I said, I wanted to kind of go back to some of them, some of the old ones, some of the ones that I really loved over the last like year and a half, and kind of start with some old good ones, throw in some newer ones, kind of like do throwbacks every so often. But one of the things that I did this time around is I kind of was like writing down each like different thing for the series, like kind of plot out what happened, what was this, what all that, to try and make this longer and give you guys a more in-depth review, because I'm trying my best. So we're kind of starting out and trying different things. But I also know that when I was originally kind of like writing things down in my notebook, I was more just writing my thoughts, how I felt about it, different things. So this time I kind of wrote down things that happened in the series along with my thoughts. Because like I said, I pointed out some of the different things that I've said. One of the other things that I made mention of is that Levi, who played Atticus, I really enjoyed watching him play Atticus. And after watching it, I was like, I don't tend to see him in a lot anymore. And I've kind of noticed that about some of the actors and actresses that were in series when I first started watching these that haven't done them in quite some time, or maybe they're on certain platforms, or they could just be doing what actors tend to do, which is branch out and try new things. Because I know that's a normal thing when it comes to the industry, is actors, they feel they want to try different things, especially ones who have been on like a series for quite some time. They tend to leave and try and see if they could do movies or do another show that would challenge them, things like that. So I figured that that's probably like the case with some of these actors and actresses, or it just might be that this wasn't what they wanted to do, so they kind of pivoted, because I know that happens sometimes too. There's a lot of actors out there who either start off big and then nothing happens for a while, and then they kind of like pivot their career to something else, or they realize after so many rejections that to fall back on another career. And some actors have done very well for themselves, living normal lives outside of acting in the spotlight. So it could be one of those things. I just know that sometimes it makes me sad when you find an actor and actress that you like and you don't see them in anything anymore. And I know that's not always their fault. Not that it is ever their fault, but I was just saying in a sense of their fault of them deciding not to do it anymore versus just not being cast because the industry is hard type of thing is what I was going with. But as I've gone off on this little tangent to go back. So that's what I was saying when I was looking up Levi. He had done a couple, and I remember one of them, I think it's on DreameShort, that I remember watching, and then he hasn't been in much since, and it makes me sad because I really do enjoy watching his series too. So, and of course, rewatching The Unwanted Ride of Atticus Fawn made me be like, oh yeah, that's right, I really do love him. Where has he been? But also kind of hoping that maybe he's kind of like onto some bigger and better things right now, because I know the other person who is in this, and I did not write down his name, but the actor who played his brother Damon, he's been in things since, because I was like, when I started watching, I was like, he looks familiar. I swear he was just in something, and sure enough he was. And again, I did not write it down, and my brain sometimes has a short memory with things like this. One of the things that I tend to be good at is I will remember actors' faces. I just don't remember names always. But I know that when watching shows and things like that, I'll see someone and I'll see a face and I'll be like, they look familiar. Why do I know them? I feel like I know them. And of course, I'll always scroll to the IMDb and be like, that's where I know them from. So that's always one thing that I slightly pride myself on, is that I'll remember a face, just never a name. I also am terrible at pronunciations for names, especially last names sometimes. So going forward, if I pronounce anyone's name or any name incorrectly, I do apologize. It's not intentional. I do try to make sure I get the correct pronunciation. I always sometimes fail. I know I did that once for a movie. I was reviewing a movie for something and I kept calling the movie the wrong name and I felt so bad. But I finally fixed myself, but it's just one of those things. But again, I'm getting off topic and I am so sorry, because that's what I do. I talk about things and then I slowly get off topic. So let's get back to The Unwanted Bride of Atticus Fawn. So going back into this, as I said, as I rewatched it, I kind of realized that I had forgotten things about it, especially like there was a time jump in it. And I honestly did not remember that time jump. So what had happened, I was like, there was a time jump in this? Why don't I remember that? Because I remember the beginning where Autumn is saved by Atticus and she kind of falls for him, only to learn that he's mated to Anya, who we at the time do not know is a witch, but is a witch who's kind of made Atticus and his brother Damon fall for her and think that she is their mate. So that way they kind of fight, and it's her and her mother's way of kind of taking down the Fawn family. But we don't learn that right away. But yeah, so going back, so we learn that Anya is Atticus's maid, and then slowly also learn that Anya is Damon's mate, quote unquote, so they believe. And we learn that when Anya brings Autumn to go see her mother, who was also saved by the Fawns from this witch war that is happening, which I believe it was never actually said or addressed, but I feel like it was Anya's mother that attacked Autumn. But I don't think it was ever actually addressed, because she was attacked by someone, and I think that was always supposed to be Anya's mother. But I wonder if it's addressed in the novel. Again, I'll have to go and look. But yeah, so after they get reunited, Autumn and her mother, they end up finding out from Eric, who is the alpha and Damon and Atticus's father, that they have to figure out who Anya is going to choose, so that way by the time they turn 18, one of them, most likely Atticus, can be alpha to take over when the time is necessary. So that leaves them at 16, which I think that's where Autumn is too. It then cuts to 2 years later, which makes sense. So now they're 18. Atticus is to take over as alpha, but he needs a mate and he needs to settle down. So they end up arranging this marriage between Autumn and Atticus, because Anya still has yet to choose between Damon and Atticus, even though you can see that she prefers Atticus over Damon, but she still loves to create the chaos. But I still was kind of thrown by that, because this is how you could tell that it's been a bit since I've seen this series, that I didn't realize the time jump was there. I remembered it as she got saved and then later they ended up kind of getting married, but I didn't think it was a 2-year later. I thought it was more of like a couple of days, maybe a week kind of later. So it's kind of nice when you rewatch these and you go, I thought I remembered this, but honestly I forgot some of these things. And this also is making me kind of go and rewatch some other ones to kind of refresh my memory, because clearly I am remembering them very, very wrong. But going on, we have Atticus not wanting to get engaged because he wants to be with Anya, who he believes is his mate, when in reality it is actually Autumn. And you can kind of tell that there is a pull between Autumn and Atticus from the start, especially from Autumn. She fell head over heels for him when he came to save her. And then when they come to talk about the wedding, she goes to change for their engagement pictures. And when they're in close quarters, you can tell that there's this pull. So you question, are they meant to be together, or is he really Anya's mate as you're watching it? And you can definitely tell that there's something very off about Anya too when you first start watching it. And then when you watch it again, you can see that more clearly, especially when Atticus finds out about the engagement, he's looking at a witch's circle, trying to figure out about this. And then Anya comes and suddenly he just walks away and doesn't deal with it or say anything about it. So she's distracting him so that way he's not looking at the witch's circle. Same with the Anya and her mother sending the wolf to kind of go after him and Autumn to distract him so that way they can kind of take him down within. And the one thing that I do love about this was that Clarissa, who was the sister, the adopted sister of Atticus and Damon, she never liked Anya, and she always made that known. She loved Autumn and preferred Autumn and was rooting for Autumn, whereas she never gave Anya anything. And I think it was mostly because Anya was tearing her brothers apart by being their mate and having them at each other's throat all the time, and she didn't like that because it caused such a rift between them. It was one of the things that I did enjoy throughout the series is how Clarissa was always on Autumn's side and always trying to help Autumn and trying to advocate for Autumn and make sure that she was okay and that she wasn't the one pushed aside for Anya. And Clarissa was the one to tell Autumn how Atticus had never been as happy as he had been with Anya like he is with Autumn, to give Autumn the hope that Atticus did love her and that they did have a chance to end up and be happy together. The same with when Atticus woke up and had no memory of Autumn, Clarissa was still the one refusing to follow the doctor's orders, which I swear the doctor was another one that was paid by Anya, because to say, oh, don't remind him of the incident and don't remind him of Autumn and suggest to get rid of any trace of Autumn. And I know it was really the mother who said we need to get rid of all the photos and all that, but him to suggest that, it seemed weird. And I felt like that was something that Anya had put into place to make Atticus only remember her and not remember Autumn at all. Because I mean, she did put in the place of the judge who sentenced Autumn to jail and tied up the original judge. So I wouldn't have put it past her to put in a fake doctor, which I don't think that was ever confirmed or mentioned. I know Clarissa questioned it, was like, it seemed weird to just forget and remove any trace of Autumn, but I don't think it was ever discovered that that wasn't a real doctor. But I still think that that was Anya who told him to say that, because Atticus remembered her, so why ruin that by bringing up Autumn and having him remember all this, especially when he was so mad at her the last time they had talked. You know, he basically pushed her aside and no longer wanted to be with her, and she didn't want that. She wasn't ready to give him up, so I could see that being something that she would do. Not to mention that this whole memory issue sounds like it came from what the mother did to poison Atticus, because she had mentioned, you know, she had did something to keep Anya's hooks into Atticus, but never really said what it was, but she inferred that she did something. So I'm assuming that's one of the things that she did, is that kind of erase his memory. I also never understood why they didn't quite tell Autumn's mother, but at the same time I do, because Atticus's parents at the time, especially the mother, assumed that Autumn was the witch and was bewitching him because she was believing everything Anya was saying and all the evidence. And so I could understand her not wanting to tell Autumn's mother that Atticus doesn't remember her and not to mention anything, because it sounded like Autumn's mother didn't know, because when Autumn got out of jail and went to go see him, she immediately thought he would know and was mad at him for not remembering all this, only to be later told by Clarissa about it all and understanding why he didn't remember her. And I guess the mother probably told the children, like Damon and Clarissa, not to tell Autumn's mother, I'm assuming. But I feel like she should have been informed, so that way Autumn could have been informed. But I guess maybe because Atticus's mother believed she was the witch, she didn't want to risk it or have Autumn come back and try and traumatize Atticus. Atticus, as the doctor believed would happen if he was to find out about the poisoning, which we later find out when Anya is the one to slip and talk about the poisoning. Atticus didn't fall apart, didn't traumatize him. He was perfectly fine. So another indication that it was Anya who had the doctor say all this, so that way Atticus wouldn't remember any of this, especially because it could lead that to Atticus finding out that it was Anya and her mother that poisoned him. That's my speculation of that. And of course, this series wouldn't be a short drama or short series without a slap, and there was the one between Anya and Autumn. Anya is the one who slapped Autumn, and there's always a good slap in these, sometimes more than one, so it was always fun to see how many times someone would get slapped, and this one did not escape without one. And as I was thinking about that, my brain was like, oh, well, maybe I could do that as a rating system, like 10 out of 10 slaps. But then I was like, well, there's some other podcasts and reviews out there that maybe are using that, and I don't want anyone to think that I copied them. So I'm trying to figure out what might be a good rating system. So I'm working on that, but we'll get back to that. But overall, this series was very good. I enjoyed every minute about it. I've watched it 3 times over the last year, and I continue to enjoy it. That I'd always watch it again. I loved the story, and I loved how it all played out and how it was all put together. And I know I believe I had mentioned in my opening that there was another series that was put out not too long ago that was similar to The Unwanted Bride of Atticus Fawn. I forget what the name was, but I do know that it was the same story. I think they changed the character's name, all the different characters, and I really want to find it again because I want to watch it to remind myself of how they did it and what they changed from Atticus Fawn to the updated version. I don't remember what the series name was and which app it was on. So I'm going to have to track that down because I do want to watch that. And then I kind of want to do a bit of a compare and contrast of the two in a sense, because I think that would be fun. And I know that is something that these short series do. There are a good amount of them that have similar themes and are put out at the same time that are similar stories. So I know there was one on Real Short of a daughter being left in a car and by her father who's out with a friend and their daughter, and the mother's desperately trying to find the daughter. And I know I've been seeing ads for a Playlet series that is similar to that. The same thing happened with another series that was about a mute bride from Real Short, and I think it was Playlet too. They had similar stories, but one was about mobsters, the other was about a business tycoon. So I've seen that happen, and they drop around the same time, and they're very similar stories. And I know some of them come from Chinese translation, so I think that also kind of adds to it too, that they take those and they create them for English audience and American audience type of thing. So I think that's why they tend to drop similar stories. And again, that happens in the movies all the time too, is sometimes similar movies get created and they drop at the same time. It's nothing new, but sometimes it's fun to just kind of look at the two and go, okay, well, this one was action packed and this one was more dramatic and this one had a great love story type of thing. So I know I love to do that, even though, I'll enjoy them just the same. For an example out there, one of the ones I know is No Strings Attached versus Friends with Benefits. Those two came at the same time. I happen to prefer Friends with Benefits because I thought that was a bit of a better story movie-wise. I think the other one was First Daughter and Chasing Liberty. Those also, don't know if they came out at the same time or came out at different times, but still close to each other. And again, Chasing Liberty happened to be one that I preferred more, even though I do still love First Daughter. I thought that, that one was a cute story, but they were both similar type movies that they had almost basically the same plot. Definitely Chasing Liberty and First Daughter. Those plots were way too similar. It was It's very crazy how alike they were, but it doesn't change how good or how much someone might like a series if they're similar like that. So I know I try to watch them both when I can because I love to see the difference in how the stories go, because sometimes they're exactly the same and sometimes they're completely different. But it's just fun to see the way it's interpreted and how they wrote the story and how it all comes together. But in the sense of this one, they were years apart. And I think it was, again, because it's a written novel that they're adapting into the series versus taking a series and recreating it for an audience. So I think that kind of also works in a favor of being able to create multiple versions of it. Because again, that's another thing that, is done from time to time. I know one standout is Roswell. That's a novel and a book series, which was adapted into a TV series in 1999, lasted only a couple seasons, and then years later, it was rebooted, both in the sense of from the TV show that once was, but also taken from the novel, the book series, and created into the new series. So it was like they did nods to the original TV series, but they took more from the books into this series than the first one did. So it was more like the books versus the first TV series type of thing. So that's the one thing I know I've seen, is that sometimes when it comes to books, you can adapt it a little bit more. I think another one that I can pull off the top of my head is Time Traveler's Wife. That book, they first made a movie and then they turned that into a TV series that only lasted a season. So kind of things like that. And when it comes to like TV and movie, it's more licensing and getting the rights to books type of thing. Whereas I think it's not as complicated with a written novel like this one, but I could be wrong because I don't know how written novels like these work. Because I think also some series that have started to be created have been coming from Wattpad, and I think those ones are slowly starting to kind of like pop up here and there. So I'm not sure how the rights to those ones work, since it's not like a novel, or I won't say copyrighted, because once you write it down and your name's in it and you publish it, then it's still your work. You may not have legal paper or editor or not a production, but people to back you like a novel or would be, but I don't know how that works. There may be more to it. But when it comes to written work that's on the internet type of thing, I don't know how the rights work versus like Candy Jar and the Galatee app. Again, pronouncing that one wrong. Those ones are copyright of that particular app. So I think the person who's writing it has the rights, as well as the app people who created it, they have the rights, so they can create these series and put them on the Candy Jar app. I believe that's how that one works. But again, I could be wrong. I could be so wrong, but that's my assumption for, at least for that one, because those two are connected. But I know I have completely gone off like different tangents when it comes to this, and I tried to stay focused. I tried to, and here we are. But getting back to this, so we can kind of end this, because I think I've talked long enough about this, is that I really enjoyed this. I love the cast completely. I thought they all worked so well together. Like I said, I adore Nicole, and I'm still so happy she is doing these series, because I always try to watch the series when I see her as the lead, because I adore her. She is so talented, and I just love everything she's in. And as I said earlier, especially the ones that she's in with Seth, those ones are always so much fun to watch, which I will definitely do some reviews on those ones. But yeah, so this was me going back to one of the very first series that I watched, which was The Unwanted Ride of Atticus Fawn. I give it 100% 10 out of 10 because it was the first one. It was one of the ones that got me hooked. It was one of the ones that sucked me in and kept me going with all these series. And yeah, so hopefully I will be able to track down the other one that is the same story, and I can hopefully read the novel of The Unwanted Bride of Atticus Fawn, and then come back and kind of talk more about the both of them and give my thoughts on all of it, because I would love to do that. But yeah, so this was definitely a top favorite. It will continue to be a top favorite, I think, again, because it was one of the first ones I watched, and I will continue to hold it above all of them. There are other ones that I really enjoy, but like I said, this one is above them all because it's the one that got me sucked into these, and it's what started it all. So I thank you for listening. This has been my vertical obsession, and until next time.